So the first thing we're going to start with is basically what's an acid and what's a base. So I'm just going to flip my camera around a little bit now, just so you can see what I'm writing, okay? Right, so I'm going to write this way so you can see. Right. Acids, bases. Okay? Right, there are 3 types of acids that you need to know about. Very important. Hydrochloric, sulfuric, and nitric. Formula for hydrochloric is HCl, sulfuric is H2SO4, and nitric is HNO3. You have to remember them, sorry to say, just memorize them. Okay, bases are a little bit different. There's not 3 bases that you have to remember. You just have to remember the general rule for what bases are. The name of a base will end in one of 3 things. It will either end in oxide, hydroxide, or carbonate. So then the first bit of that word is always going to be the name of a metal. Remember on your periodic table, which is at the back of your SciPad, if you go to the back of your SciPad and look on your periodic table, remember we did that zigzag line down here. Everything to the left was an acid, everything to the left was a metal, everything to the right was a non-metal. Now you need to refer to that. You're going to have to get very familiar with which are metals and which are non-metals. So if we just picked some random metals just to use as examples here, we could say, right, let's choose lead oxide, sodium hydroxide, calcium carbonate. Okay, these could be any metals, but they have to end in oxide, hydroxide, or carbonate. Now, what makes an acid and what makes a base a base? Well, if you were to look at an acid and you could zoom in, right, and look at the particles that were floating around, you'd see in an acid there's lots of H+ ions, okay? And hydrogen, which has lost an electron, but you don't need to worry about that, floating about in the solution, and that's what makes an acid an acid. For a base, you would see lots of OH- floating about, and that's what makes a base a base. So the number or the concentration of the acid depends on how many of these H+ ions are within that fixed volume. And the concentration of a base depends on how many of these OH- ions are floating about within a fixed volume.